Hello and welcome to part 2 of the lab safety rules with Mrs. Mohler. We're continuing on with our notes in the same fashion we did before, where you have the headings on the left hand side and then you indent a little bit and put the rest of your notes underneath there. Our next section is on chemical safety. The first rule is if you spill a chemical on your skin, tell the teacher as soon as possible, right away. We need to get that cleaned off. Now, generally in 7th grade, we don't use any acids or anything like that that could burn your skin off, but some people might have reactions to certain things that we do use, and so it's always a good idea to wash off anything that you spill on your skin right away. The next rule is very, very important. Never touch, taste, or sniff any chemicals. Always waft to determine odor. Basically, anything that's in the science lab, you should not put your nose right into it and take a big whiff. Even though something may be clear and maybe you think it's water, chances are that it could be a vinegar or alcohol or something very, very strong. And if you were to take a really big sniff, you might end up passing out. So what you do is what's called wafting, and you see the little boy there moving his hand. And also, if you look in the book, remember we're on pages R10 and R11. On the right hand side you see where they're moving their hand. Think about a chef. When you see a chef and he's trying to smell what's in his pot, he'll move his hand towards him and kind of make a little bit of air movement. Go ahead and try that now. Nobody's looking, so just right out in front of you, wave your hand to you, kind of in a circle, and you can feel that air come to you. And so doing it this way means that you get a little bit of the odor or the smell, whatever's in that container, rather than getting a big snootful and then passing out from the smell. So you always, always, always waft to determine what the odor is. And also, you never eat or drink anything in the science lab. You never know what's been on a table beforehand, and so it's just safer not to ever eat or drink anything in the lab. Our next rule is to keep the lids on chemicals not being used. So when you're done with something, put the lid back on it so in case you knock it over, it doesn't go all over the place. Kind of like when you're at home and your mom tells you to put the lids back onto the milk or whatever so that you don't spill it. Okay, under the same section, we're continuing on with chemical safety. Never put unused chemicals back into the original container. Well, why do you think you wouldn't want to do that? I mean, we're trying to save money. If we don't use everything that was in the lab, why wouldn't we want to put it back? Well, the reason for that is that something else might have ended up going into those chemicals. And if that were to happen and you were to put it back into the original container, then you would contaminate the rest of the container, and that would ruin the experiment. So if there's anything left over, then go ahead and just dispose of it properly, like whatever I told you to do. You should pour chemicals over the sink or a table. Definitely not over the floor. If you spill something by accident and the floor gets wet, it does get very slippery, so you can slip and fall, or someone else can slip and fall and hurt themselves. So always pour them over a sink or over a table. Use the eye wash if you get chemicals in your eyes. In a video later on, I'm going to show you where the eye wash is in the classroom. It is in the back, and how you use that. Again, if you ever get anything in your eyes, go ahead and go straight back there and go ahead and use it, and then of course let somebody tell me what happened. And then lastly, always wash your hands after handling chemicals, or any time we use a lab. You should always go ahead and wash your hands afterwards. Alright, there are 3 icons in the chemical safety section. So if you would pause and draw those out for me. Remember, those go on the left-hand side of your margin. They are chemical safety, poison, and fumes. I'll see you in a minute. Our next heading is glassware and sharp object safety. If you break glassware, tell the teacher, please come tell me right away so that I can clean it up and make sure that no one else gets hurt. Please don't try to clean it up yourself. These pieces of glass can be very sharp and you can end up getting cut. So just let me know and I will take care of it. Never use broken or chipped glassware. If it is chipped or it is cracked in any way and you were to heat it, then it would crack further and probably break. Any glassware that's chipped is obviously sharp and can cut you. So if you ever see anything that is chipped, please let me know and I'll give you a new one. When using knives, always wear goggles and cut away from you. Whenever you're using a knife, whether it's in, which you won't probably in our lab, but even if when you're at home, you always want to make sure that you are cutting away from you and not towards you, because if you slip, you might accidentally stab yourself, which would not be a good thing. There is one icon to draw, so go ahead and pause and draw the icon on sharp objects. Our next heading is on animal safety, and even though we don't really have animals in the lab, these are great rules to follow for any animal that you come into contact with. First of all, you never hurt an animal. You are always kind to animals and you be careful with them. Next, you handle animals per the teacher's or the owner's instructions. You always ask for permission from the owner if it's okay to pet them or hold them. Some animals are not friendly or they get frightened and they can end up biting. So please always ask the owner if it's okay to handle their pet. And lastly, when you're done petting them or playing with them, you always want to wash your hands after you're finished playing with them. And our final section is on cleanup. Follow the teacher's directions for cleaning and putting away supplies. I have 6 classes pretty much right in a row, and the classroom needs to be clean when you leave so that the next class that comes in is ready to go and they don't have to deal with your mess. So please always make sure that your area is cleaned up and nice for the next class to come in. Completely clean up your work area and the floor. Sometimes when we're working with water, we might end up spilling water or other liquids on the floor, so it's important that you wipe them up completely so that somebody doesn't fall. And lastly, always wash your hands after you're done with all the labs. There is one icon to draw under cleanup. So if you would get that finished up, that is the end of our screencast on lab safety.